The price of gas is now much cheaper in Mexico than it is in the United States. And that's why so many Californians are now driving across the border to fill their cars. Now, why is this happening? That does not make sense. Oil prices set in the international market. But apart from a few outlier websites like Zero Hedge, which not coincidentally the left is always trying to shut down and censor, no one seems to be asking that question. We do know that gas prices in Mexico are so cheap that the Mexican government is encouraging more Americans to cross the border to refuel their cars. Right now, said the president of Mexico this week, a gallon of regular cost $4.78 average on your side of the border, while in Mexico it cost $3.12. So you have to ask yourself, if we're paying more for gas because of Putin's price hike, why isn't Mexico paying more for gas because of Putin too? Why is inflation up when wages are down? This doesn't make any sense. So if you want to answer those questions, you really have to look at government spending. Last month, Mexico's government did not follow the Biden administration's lead and send its strategic petroleum reserve to China. They did not do that. Instead, here's what Mexico did. They spent $2 billion in subsidies to keep gas prices lower for consumers. In other words, the government of Mexico, in the middle of a drug war, is taking better care of its citizens than Joe Biden is taking care of his citizens. And that is shameful. But it doesn't mean Joe Biden is ignoring the needy. In the very same month that gas prices shot beyond the reach of people, people aren't taking trips because of gas prices. Joe Biden, in the name of democracy, signed a $40 billion aid package, not for you or any other American, but for Ukraine. And that money, Joe Biden says, is just the beginning. It's part of our unlimited commitment to funding Ukraine's corrupt and authoritarian government. Here's Biden.
For as long as it takes. Does it mean indefinite support from the United States for Ukraine? Or will there come a time when you have to say to President Zelensky that the United States cannot support his country any longer? Thank you.
We are going to support Ukraine as long as it takes. We are going to stick with Ukraine, and all of the allies are going to stick with Ukraine as long as it takes.
The war has pushed prices up. They could go as high as $200 a barrel, some analysts think. How long is it fair to expect American drivers and drivers around the world to pay that premium for this war?
As long as it takes. So Russia cannot, in fact, defeat Ukraine and move beyond Ukraine.
Future generations will look at that tape and many tapes like it with their jaws open. As long as it takes, whatever the cost for Ukraine. As the American economy heads toward total destruction, Ukrainians are dying in large numbers. Who's winning? Well, Ukrainian oligarchs. They're getting richer, much richer. Since January of this year, the Biden administration has sent about $8 billion just in so-called security assistance alone to Ukraine. That would include missile systems, howitzers, ammunition, radar systems, et cetera, et cetera. Now, defense contractors are making a ton from this, and that's why they have lobbied for it so hard. But you have to ask, once we send these weapons to Ukraine, where do they go then? What happens to them? These are sophisticated and deadly weapon systems. Well, no one knows where they go. No one's keeping track. U.S. officials, Biden administration officials, have admitted that to the Wall Street Journal, and we're quoting. Once U.S. equipment, materiel, is handed to the Ukrainian government, U.S. officials said they have little direct knowledge of where that materiel goes. They rely instead on the Ukrainian government for such information. The administration has not agreed to allow American military troops to conduct some oversight into that country, end quote. So you send billions to Ukraine in the middle of a war, and then you don't bother to find out what happens to it? What will happen to these weapons? Well, the Czech defense minister knows. He has said these weapons, some of them, will be smuggled out of Ukraine. Quote, "It's hard to avoid trafficking or smuggling. We didn't achieve it in the former Yugoslavia, and we probably won't avoid it in Ukraine." This is lunacy. If you wanted to make Eastern Europe dangerous and unstable for generations, ensure that war continues and many more die, this is exactly what you would do. You would treat Ukraine like we treated Afghanistan. But that's just the beginning of the money we're sending.